My husband signed away his rights and left us because he wants normal children. Now, he wants custody after learning that our son was a genius? Female. The day Marcus signed the termination papers, he didn't even look at our son. Oliver was 4 years old, sitting in the corner of our lawyer's office, lining up toy cars by color and size. Marcus had complained about that for months. How Oliver wouldn't make eye contact. How he'd memorize entire books but couldn't hold a conversation. How other dads at the park got to play catch while Marcus sat alone watching Oliver count leaves. Marcus said he wanted a fresh start. A normal family with normal kids. He'd already met someone new, a woman named Brittany who had 2 typical sons from her first marriage. Boys who played baseball and looked you in the eye. I sat across from him in that office, feeling like I'd been hollowed out. The judge asked Marcus 3 times if he understood what he was signing. Full termination of parental rights. No custody, no visitation, no financial obligation. Marcus signed without hesitation. The first 2 years after he left were the hardest of my life. Oliver's therapies cost more than my rent. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral specialists. Insurance covered almost nothing. I worked double shifts at the hospital while my mother watched Oliver. Some nights I'd come home and find him still awake at 3 a.m., reading encyclopedias by flashlight because he said the pictures helped him understand how the world worked. By age 6, Oliver started doing things that amazed me. He'd calculate restaurant tips faster than the waitress could type them into the register. He memorized the periodic table by accident while flipping through a science magazine. His teacher called me in because Oliver had corrected her math on the whiteboard, and she didn't know how to handle it. The school district sent a psychologist to evaluate him. She spent 3 hours with Oliver and called me afterward, sounding almost nervous. She said Oliver's IQ couldn't be accurately measured with standard tests because he'd maxed out every section. She used words like profoundly gifted and exceptional cognitive abilities. She recommended a specialized academy that cost $40,000 a year. I laughed and told her I couldn't afford that. She went quiet, then said something strange. She said kids like Oliver attract attention and that I should be careful about who I told. I didn't understand what she meant until strange things started happening. A man in a gray suit showed up at Oliver's school asking about his test scores. The principal called me alarmed, saying he'd claimed to be from the district office but couldn't be verified. A week later, my mother noticed a black car parked outside her house every afternoon during pickup. She wrote down the plate and it traced to a rental company that wouldn't give her information. My sister called saying Marcus's mother had reached out after 5 years of silence, asking questions about Oliver. How was he doing in school? Did he have special talents? Was he healthy? I blocked her number, but the questions kept coming from different directions. Marcus's cousin messaged me asking for photos of Oliver. A woman claiming to be a documentary filmmaker contacted his school wanting to interview exceptional students. Then the custody papers arrived. Marcus wanted full custody of a child he'd legally abandoned. His lawyer argued that circumstances had changed, that Marcus was now better positioned to provide for Oliver's special needs. The filing mentioned Oliver's test scores, his acceptance to a gifted program, the attention from educational institutions, information Marcus should not have had access to. I hired a lawyer I couldn't afford and started digging. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus hadn't randomly heard about Oliver's abilities. He'd been tracking us. Bank records showed he'd been paying a private investigator for 18 months. Photos of Oliver at school, at therapy, at the grocery store, reports detailing his test scores, his teachers' names, his medical appointments. But that wasn't the worst part. I found emails between Marcus and a company called Apex Development Systems. They specialized in identifying exceptional children for corporate recruitment programs. The emails discussed Oliver specifically, referring to him as a high-value asset with unprecedented potential. The last email mentioned a finder's fee of $250,000, payable upon successful custody transfer. Marcus wasn't trying to be Oliver's father again. He was trying to sell our son. And what I discovered next about who was really behind Apex made me realize I was fighting something much bigger than my ex-husband. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below. I'm sitting in my car outside my attorney's office, hands shaking as I stare at the Apex Development Systems website on my phone. The sleek corporate logo and vague mission statement about harvesting exceptional talent for next-generation solutions make my stomach turn. 3 clicks deeper, I find what I'm looking for. Government contracts, dozens of them. Department of Defense, DARPA, intelligence agencies with acronyms I barely recognize. My lawyer, Elaine, had been blunt when I showed her Marcus's custody filing. This shouldn't be possible, she said, scanning the documents with deepening concern. Termination of parental rights is permanent. The courts don't just reverse these decisions because someone changes their mind. But then she found the emergency motion buried in the filing. Marcus is claiming I'm endangering Oliver by exploiting his exceptional abilities and denying him access to appropriate developmental resources. He's painted me as an obstacle to Oliver's potential. He signed those rights away in front of a judge, I remind her, my voice breaking. He didn't want Oliver because he wasn't normal enough. Elaine's eyes soften. I know, and legally, that should be the end of it. But something's not right here. The judge assigned to your case, she hesitates. Let's just say he has a history of unusual rulings in cases involving gifted children. That night, after tucking Oliver into bed, I dig deeper into Apex. Their public information is minimal, but a research forum for parents of gifted children has an entire thread dedicated to them. Parents sharing stories of recruitment attempts, mysterious evaluations, and generous educational sponsorships that came with extensive non-disclosure agreements. One post stops my scrolling cold. They approached us after my daughter scored in the 99th percentile on standardized testing, offered full scholarships, special enrichment programs. When we declined, they contacted my ex-husband. 3 months later, he filed for full custody. I'm still reading at 2 a.m. when I hear Oliver crying. I rush to his room and find him sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror. The men are watching me, he whispers when I hold him. The gray man and his friends. They stand outside and write things down. I check every window, every door, nothing. But Oliver won't go back to sleep until I lie beside him, my arm protectively around his small body. His breathing eventually steadies, but mine doesn't. I stare at the ceiling, connecting dots I wish weren't there. The next morning, I get a call from Oliver's school. The principal's voice is tight with concern. Miss Reynolds, we've had another incident. A man claiming to be from an educational assessment board tried to speak with Oliver's teacher about his progress. When we asked for credentials, he left abruptly. This is the 3rd time this month. I take the day off work and drive straight to school to pick up Oliver early. As I'm signing him out, his teacher pulls me aside. Oliver drew this in class today, she says, handing me a detailed drawing of men in suits standing outside a house. One figure, labeled Gray Man, holds what looks like a camera. He was very insistent that these are real people, not imaginary. 3 days later, the court summons arrives. Marcus has filed an emergency motion claiming I'm endangering Oliver by refusing appropriate educational interventions and isolating him from specialized resources necessary for his development. The hearing is scheduled for next week, and the judge has already granted Marcus temporary supervised visitation until then. This is moving too fast. Elaine warns when I call her. Someone's pulling strings. We need to be prepared for the possibility that the judge might grant him temporary custody pending a full hearing. The first supervised visit is scheduled at a neutral location, a family counseling center with observation rooms. Oliver doesn't remember Marcus. He was too young when Marcus left, and I watch through one-way glass as my son cautiously approaches this stranger who shares his DNA. Marcus brings gifts, advanced puzzle books, a tablet loaded with educational games, a stuffed dinosaur that Oliver immediately hugs to his chest. The social worker supervising seems impressed by Marcus's preparation, his knowledge of Oliver's interests. I wonder if she knows he paid someone to compile that information. When the visit ends, Oliver runs to me, clutching his new dinosaur. He's nice, Oliver says, and the simplicity of that statement feels like a knife between my ribs. That night, as I'm tucking Oliver into bed with his new dinosaur, I notice something odd about the toy's weight. It feels heavier on one side. I wait until Oliver is asleep before carefully examining the stuffed animal, feeling along the seams until I find a small incision hidden under the arm. Inside, nestled against the stuffing, is a black disc the size of a quarter. With trembling fingers, I remove it and examine it under the light. It's a tracking device, sophisticated and small, the kind used by professionals, not jealous exes, the kind that might be available to government contractors. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I methodically search through every item Oliver brought home from the visit. The puzzle books are clean, but the tablet has monitoring software installed that would record everything Oliver does, says, or types. The dinosaur isn't the only thing bugged. There's another tracker sewn into the collar of the new shirt Marcus gave him. I place all the devices in a metal box and drive them to Elaine's office before dawn. She takes one look at them and calls in a favor from a former client who works in digital security. These are military grade, he confirms after examining them, not something you can just buy online. Whoever placed these has serious resources, or serious connections, Elaine adds, looking at me with grave concern. The hearing is in 3 days. We need to be ready for what comes next. What comes next, I'm beginning to realize, is much bigger than a custody battle. This isn't about Marcus wanting to be a father again. This is about Apex Development Systems wanting my son and the unprecedented potential inside his extraordinary mind, and I'm the only thing standing in their way. The morning after finding the trackers, I'm sitting across from Dr. Lena Chen, Oliver's therapist, in her sunlit office. Her usually calm face shows concern as she reviews her notes from yesterday's supervised visit. Marcus asked some unusual questions during their time together, she says, tapping her pen against her notepad. He seemed fixated on Oliver's memory capabilities, asked him to recall specific details from books they'd read together, quizzed him on mathematical sequences. My stomach tightens. That doesn't sound like normal father-son bonding. It wasn't, Doctor, Chen confirms. When Oliver started listing prime numbers, Marcus recorded him on his phone, said it was to show Grandma, but Oliver mentioned feeling like he was being tested. I think about the tracking devices now sitting in Elaine's office safe. Did he ask about Oliver's school, his test scores? Repeatedly. He was particularly interested in how Oliver processes visual information, had him arrange puzzle pieces while timing him with his watch. She hesitates. In my professional opinion, this didn't feel like a parent getting to know their child. It felt like an assessment. Outside in the parking lot, I'm fumbling for my keys when someone calls my name. I turn to see a woman approaching, blonde hair, designer sunglasses, expensive handbag. It takes me a moment to place her. Brittany? I ask, immediately tensing. Marcus's girlfriend nods, glancing nervously over her shoulder. I need to talk to you. Not here. We end up at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Brittany keeps checking the door, her hands trembling slightly as she stirs her untouched latte. Something's wrong with Marcus, she finally says. He's not the same person anymore. 6 months ago, we were struggling to pay bills. Now he's buying expensive electronics, a new car. He has meetings he won't tell me about. Why are you telling me this? Her eyes meet mine. Because it started after he got that first email about Oliver, the one from Apex. She pulls out her phone, scrolls through it. I saw this on his laptop when he left it open. She shows me a bank statement, $50,000 deposited from something called Ads Holdings, with a memo line reading, initial consultation fee. There's more, she continues. My boys told me Marcus has been studying Oliver's medical records at night. He has has files, brain scans, test results, things I don't think he should have access to. How did he get those? My voice sounds distant to my own ears. I don't know, but he's obsessed with Oliver's cognitive functions, talks about neural pathways and processing speeds. She leans forward. Last week, I overheard him on the phone saying Oliver could be the key to the whole program. What program? I don't answer. Can't answer. That night, my phone chimes with a security alert. Someone is attempting to access my home network. I watch in real time as my system blocks multiple intrusion attempts from an unknown source. The attacks continue for 40 minutes before abruptly stopping. I call Elaine first thing in the morning. She's already received a disturbing update. Oliver's principal just called me, she says, her voice tight. A man identifying himself as a department official contacted the school, demanding Oliver's complete academic file and psychological evaluations. When the principal refused without proper authorization, the caller said, and I quote, "This is a matter of national security." What department? I asked. He wouldn't specify, just kept repeating the department. The principal reported it to the school district's legal team. 2 days later, Marcus's lawyer calls with an offer, $100,000 for shared custody. No questions asked, no court battle, just a simple agreement. My client is prepared to be extremely generous, the lawyer says smoothly. He simply wants to be part of his son's life. I hang up without answering. The next day, Oliver's school calls again. This time, it's worse. We have security footage we think you should see, the principal says. When I arrive, she leads me to the security office, where a monitor shows the playground from yesterday afternoon. Oliver is sitting alone, working on something in a notebook. 2 men stand outside the fence, one with a camera with a long lens, photographing him through the chain links. We confronted them, the principal explains, but they claim to be from the district's gifted program evaluation team. When we asked for ID, they left immediately. That evening, Brittany texts me, "My boys just told me Marcus has been studying Oliver's medical records every night, says he's memorizing them for an important meeting." I'm putting Oliver to bed when my laptop pings with an email from an address I don't recognize, apex.whistleblower@protonmail.com. The subject line reads, "What they want with your son." With shaking hands, I open the attachment internal Apex documents with headers marked classified. The first page shows Oliver's photo alongside detailed neurological assessments I never authorized. The second page outlines something called the Cognitive Harvest Initiative. I read the executive summary with growing horror. Subject OR demonstrates unprecedented neural architecture. Preliminary remote assessment indicates potential compatibility with Phase 3 protocols. Recommend immediate acquisition for full evaluation. At the bottom of the document, a handwritten note has been scanned. Marcus is on board. Proceed with legal strategy. If unsuccessful, consider alternate acquisition methods. Asset value justifies extraordinary measures. I close the laptop and look at Oliver, sleeping peacefully with his dinosaur toy, the one I replaced after removing the tracker. His small face is relaxed, unaware of the storm gathering around him. They're calling my son an asset, and they're not planning to take no for an answer. I sit at my kitchen table at 2 a.m., the glow from my laptop casting shadows across the room as I read through the Apex documents for the 3rd time. My hands are shaking so badly I have to set down my coffee mug before I spill it. The executive summary of the Cognitive Harvest Initiative makes my blood run cold. Program objective: identify and acquire subjects with exceptional neural architecture for advanced cognitive mapping. Target subjects demonstrate unprecedented processing capabilities that cannot be artificially replicated with current technology. I scroll further, past pages of technical jargon about neural networks and cognitive processing speeds, until I reach a section titled Acquisition Protocols. The clinical language does nothing to mask the horror of what they're describing. Phase 1, remote assessment through standardized testing data, educational records, and behavioral observation. Phase 2, preliminary neural mapping via non-invasive methods disguised as enrichment activities. Phase 3, full integration into program facilities for comprehensive cognitive harvesting procedures. Oliver's file is marked for expedited Phase 3 integration. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Not secure to talk here. Need to meet. I worked for Apex. I know what they want with your son. I almost delete it as a trap, but something makes me respond. How do I know you're not one of them? The reply comes immediately. Because I left when I realized what they were doing to the children. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., public library, children's section. Come alone. I don't sleep that night. I check on Oliver every hour, watching his chest rise and fall, wondering what they see when they look at him. Not my beautiful boy who still sleeps with his dinosaur. Not the child who gets excited about prime numbers and memorizes encyclopedias by accident. They see an asset, a resource to be harvested. The library is crowded when I arrive the next morning, which feels safer somehow. I spot her immediately, a thin woman with short gray hair sitting in the children's reading area, pretending to read a picture book. When she sees me, she nods slightly and moves to a more secluded corner. "My name is Dr. Eleanor Weiss," she says quietly. "I was lead researcher on neural mapping at Apex for 6 years. What do they want with my son?" I ask, keeping my voice low. She looks around nervously before answering. "They're not just studying gifted children, they're using them. The human brain is still the most sophisticated neural network on the planet. AI can't replicate certain cognitive functions, especially the kind of intuitive leaps your son can make. Using them how? They map the neural pathways of exceptional minds, then use that architecture to develop military AI systems. The children with the most valuable neural patterns are kept for ongoing eye harvesting." My stomach turns. Harvesting? They connect them to machines that record brain activity during problem-solving tasks. The procedures start non-invasive, but eventually, she stops, swallowing hard. hard. The most valuable subjects undergo surgically implanted interfaces. They call it enrichment. Tell the parents it's specialized education. I think of the $40,000 specialized academy they recommended, and the parents just agree? Most never know. Custody arrangements are manipulated. The children become wards of special educational foundations. Legal guardianship transfers are handled through shell companies, like Apex offering Marcus $250,000 to get custody of Oliver. I whisper. She nods grimly. Your son's neural architecture is unprecedented. They're calling him the key to next-generation AI development. She hands me a flash drive. This contains everything: internal memos, research protocols, names of officials involved. I'm leaving the country tonight. Use this carefully. At Oliver's supervised visit with Marcus that afternoon, I watch through the observation window as my ex-husband shows Oliver a tablet with what looks like a simple game, but I recognize it now from Dr. Weiss's description. It's measuring Oliver's cognitive responses, mapping how his brain solves problems. When the visit ends, I ask the supervisor for 5 minutes alone with Marcus. She hesitates but agrees to wait just outside. I know what you're doing, I tell him the moment we're alone. I know about Apex and the Cognitive Harvest Initiative. His face goes blank for just a second before he recovers. I don't know what you're talking about. I place printouts of the documents on the table between us. They're using you to get to Oliver. They don't care about you. You're just the legal pathway. Marcus stares at the papers, then at me. Something shifts in his expression. You don't understand what's at stake, he says quietly. Oliver would be safe, protected. His abilities would serve a greater purpose. They want to put implants in his brain, Marcus. It's more complicated than that. The program is advancing national security. Oliver could help protect millions. By becoming a lab rat, my voice rises despite my efforts to stay calm. By fulfilling his potential, Marcus snaps. What can you offer him? Double shifts at a hospital and a public school that can't challenge him? Apex can give him everything. Except freedom. Except childhood. Except me. My hands are shaking with rage. How much are they paying you? He doesn't answer, but his eyes flicker down to the papers. That night, Brittany calls me in a panic. I found something, she whispers. Marcus left his laptop open, and I saw his emails. There are contracts, military contracts, worth millions. He's been communicating directly with someone at the Pentagon about Oliver. Did you see any names? General William Hargrove. And there were references to someone called the director. Her voice breaks. There were photos of Oliver from inside your house. Recent ones. Someone's been inside when you weren't home. Ice forms in my veins. Brittany, get your boys and go somewhere safe. Don't tell Marcus where. 2 days later, we're in court for the emergency custody hearing. Marcus's lawyer looks smugly confident as we enter, and when I see the judge, I understand why. Judge Raymond Keller, whose name appears in the Apex documents as a program facilitator. As the hearing begins, Elaine passes me a note. Judge has received $175,000 in consulting fees from ADS Holdings in the past year. I watch as Marcus testifies about his renewed commitment to fatherhood and his concern for Oliver's educational needs. The judge nods sympathetically, making notes. When it's my turn to speak, I feel the weight of what's at stake. This isn't just about custody anymore. It's about saving my son from becoming an experiment, a high-value asset to be harvested for his extraordinary mind, and I'm the only one who stands between them and Oliver. I wake up to my phone ringing at 5:30 a.m. It's Vanessa, my college roommate who now works as an investigative journalist for the Washington Post. I read everything, she says without preamble. Those Apex documents are. Can you help? My voice sounds small, even to my own ears. I've been up all night making calls. My editor's on board. We're going to run the story tomorrow. Front page, full exposure of the Cognitive Harvest Initiative. She pauses, but you need to be prepared for what happens next. These people have serious connections. 3 hours later, I'm watching Oliver eat breakfast when my phone explodes with notifications. Vanessa's story has dropped early. Government contractor targeting gifted children for experimental program. The article details how Apex Development Systems has been identifying exceptionally gifted children across the country, manipulating custody situations to gain access to them, and subjecting them to increasingly invasive neural monitoring under the guise of specialized education. Dr. Eleanor Weiss is quoted extensively, her testimony backed by internal documents and corroborated by 3 other former Apex employees who came forward after she made contact. The article includes redacted images of Oliver's file alongside files of other children identified as high-value cognitive assets. By noon, the story has been picked up by every major news outlet. My phone rings constantly, other parents whose children were targeted, journalists seeking comments, even congressional staffers saying their bosses want to investigate. You need to see this. Elaine texts, sending a link to a live press conference. A stern-faced woman, identified as Congresswoman Helen Winters, is standing at a podium. The allegations regarding Apex Development Systems' Cognitive Harvest Initiative are deeply disturbing, she says. I am announcing the formation of a special congressional committee to investigate these claims immediately. If children are being exploited for military technology development without proper oversight or consent, those responsible will be held accountable. I'm still watching when Brittany calls, her voice tight with panic. Marcus is furious. He just got a call from someone at Apex. They're blaming him for the leak. He threw his phone across the room, then started packing a bag. He told the boys he has to go away for a few days on business. Did he say where? No, but she hesitates. There was something about Oliver's visit tomorrow. He said it was now or never. Cold fear grips me. Brittany, call the police. Tell them everything. The supervised visitation center calls an hour later to confirm tomorrow's appointment. I consider canceling, but Elaine advises against it. If you cancel, he could claim you're interfering with court-ordered visitation. We need to alert the supervisor supervisor about the potential risk and have extra security in place. The next morning, I'm a nervous wreck as I drive Oliver to the visitation center. He clutches his dinosaur toy, quiet in a way that breaks my heart. "Mom, is Dad mad at me?" he asks suddenly. "No, honey. Why would you think that?" "Because the gray men are his friends, and you made them upset." I grip the steering wheel tighter. "Oliver, what do you mean?" "Dad showed me pictures of the gray men. He said they're his bosses, and they want to take me to a special school where I can help them with important work." His voice drops to a whisper, but I don't want to go. At the visitation center, I pull the supervisor aside and explain my concerns. She looks alarmed and calls her manager, who arranges for an off-duty police officer to be present during the visit. I watch through the observation window as Marcus arrives, scanning the room with tense, darting eyes. He hugs Oliver stiffly, then leans down to whisper something in his ear. Oliver shakes his head, and Marcus's face hardens. He pulls out his phone, shows Oliver something on the screen, then stands and announces he's taking Oliver to the bathroom. The supervisor steps forward. "I'll need to accompany you." Marcus's smile is tight. I watch them walk down the hallway, my heart pounding. 5 minutes pass. 10. The manager returns, looking concerned. They're not in the bathroom. Everything happens in a blur after that. The center goes into lockdown. Police are called. Security footage shows Marcus leading Oliver through a side exit where a black SUV was waiting. The supervisor who accompanied them is found locked in a supply closet, unconscious. For 3 agonizing hours, I wait at the police station as an Amber Alert goes out for Oliver. Elaine arrives with Dr. Weiss, who provides names and locations of Apex facilities where Marcus might take him. "There's a private airfield they use," she says, pointing to a map. "It's where they transport high-value subjects to their main research facility in Nevada. The FBI is involved now, coordinating with local police." At 4:17 p.m., my phone rings with an unknown number. "Mrs. Reynolds? This is Special Agent Donovan with the FBI. We've located your son." I collapse into a chair, unable to speak. "A black SUV matching the description was spotted at Westfield Airfield. We have agents on the ground. They've confirmed visual on your son and his father, along with 3 men identified as Apex executives." 90 minutes later, I'm running across the tarmac of a small airfield where Oliver sits wrapped in a shock blanket in the back of an FBI vehicle. When he sees me, he bursts into tears and reaches for me with both arms. "Mom, they said I had to go with them or they'd hurt you." I hold him so tightly I'm afraid I might break him, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling his small body trembling against mine. "You're safe now," I whisper. "I've got you." Over Oliver's shoulder, I see Marcus being led to a police car in handcuffs, along with 3 men in expensive suits. One of them older, with steel gray hair, stares at Oliver with such naked calculation that I turn my body to shield my son from his gaze. 2 weeks later, we're back in court. This time, the courtroom is packed with reporters, and the judge is not Judge Keller, who has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation of his ties to Apex. The new judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, reviews the evidence and listens to testimony from FBI agents about Marcus's attempted abduction. The court finds that the respondent's actions constitute a clear danger to the minor child. She announces, "All visitation rights are hereby permanently terminated." Furthermore, a protective order is granted against the respondent and all named Apex Development Systems employees, prohibiting any contact with the minor child or his mother. Outside the courthouse, a Pentagon spokesperson is giving a statement to a crowd of reporters. The Department of Defense had no knowledge of or involvement in Apex Development Systems' unauthorized recruitment activities involving minors. We have terminated all contracts with Apex and are fully cooperating with the congressional investigation. That night, Oliver sleeps in my bed, his dinosaur clutched to his chest. For the first time in months, there are no nightmares, no waking in terror. I watch the gentle rise and fall of his chest, this extraordinary child who almost became an experiment instead of a boy. In the morning, he asks if we can go to the park, just a normal kid wanting to play. As I push him on the swings, his laughter floating up to the clear blue sky, I make him a silent promise. His brilliant mind will always be his own, to use however he chooses. Not as an asset, not as a resource, but as the beautiful gift it is, and I will protect that gift with everything I have.